People that are not in this. Hi, Bruce. Morning, guys.
Kevin, you can sign that. It just says that you consent to their electronic meetings.
Okay, welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Board of Education on District 63 Saanich on this lovely January evening, which was it raining outside earlier? It was even raining.
It's not raining.
Oh, good, okay. I'd like to welcome Phil Malloy, who's representing Colfax here tonight. And we have Donnie Peterson coming in electronically, representing the Saanich Teachers Association. And, oh, there she is, Mary Lynn Heron, representing Saanich Administrators Association. And I think that's all our partner reps tonight. Okay, welcome everyone, staff and trustees. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting tonight on the traditional territories of the Wasanich people who lived and learned and worked on these lands since time immemorial. We're grateful for the opportunity to share these lands with them. Could I have a motion, please? So first of all, before we go on, I should tell you that we have regrets from Chair Dunford. Chair Tim Dunford is quite ill tonight and is unable to be with us. He's sorry he can't be here, and we're sorry he's not, so get well soon, Tim. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Move trustee Vandell, seconded trustee Hickman. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
I'd like to add something, actually.
Oh, sorry, I was too fast.
You were too fast.
Okay, can we just hold that vote for a second?
Yeah.
Go ahead, trustee Vandell.
So I'd like to add two things, other business as submitted, number 16. One would be some comments about the trustees tour of schools. And another is just a small note on BC, from BCSTA.
So 16A will be trustee tours and 16B will be BCSTA, and then there is another item, election of BCPC alternate representative as well.
Right, is BCSTA number 13, trustee representatives.
Oh, I guess it would be, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
That's the BCSTA is under reports from trustee representatives.
Yep.
Okay,
That's right.
all right, so not BCSTA, so under 16,
Yeah.
it's the trustee tours. And election of BCPC alternate representative. Okay, is that, now we can vote. Again, those in favor, those opposed on the motion on the agenda as amended is carried. Okay. Moving on then. Just want, oh, sorry, the wrong sheet here. I need that one. That's the old minutes. Just prior to this meeting, the board held an in-camera session and discussed personnel matters. Now we can adopt the minutes. Okay, is there a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting of December 7, 2022? Trustee Van Well, seconded trustee Van Dole. Any errors, omissions? Hearing none, I will declare the minutes adopted and circulated again. There's no business arising out of the minutes, but we do have a presentation. And I'd like to welcome Bruce Underwood from the Sault tribe. He's going to talk to us a little bit about our strategic plan. Have I got that right, Bruce?
Yeah.
Good.
I don't know. No, perfect.
Sort of. Connected, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome, Bruce. Would you like to come to the podium, or are you comfortable just standing where you are, or wherever you like?
Whatever works.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Tiatala Haitseapka Nanorimat Tinyayas Muk Elept Eichen swallowing the snowy is to the sulfay and to Lalam to Sincia is to the school out. Tiatala Haitseapka. Thanking each and every one of you for the opportunity to be here today. And I think one of the things I worked in a district, and I'm sure you're aware, I spent 11 years in a school district working at Stellies. I know of some of the staff here and the directors, trustees. You know, when I worked with the elders at that time, they said, you know, you need to create a positive moment for our learners, our children. They're our sacred flower, and we need to keep all those bad weeds away from our flower garden. One of the things that we need to do is protect them and create a memorable day for them. And we were trying to define what success meant to us then. And success was for a child to continue to show up the next day. Whether they were passing or failing, that didn't matter. They were there. They were trusting in what we were doing as a family to encourage them to be better people. And I know I'm not speaking to the strategy per se. You know, when we talked about the strategy and we went out to community and we asked for people to be involved or engaging politically, administratively, parents and grandparents, and even some of the Indigenous or First Nations staff. So that inclusive piece for me was around us redefining what success means to us so many years later. And the message that I'm getting is that we are coming a long way from just having a child show up at the door, greeting them with a smile. But I can't forget about the teaching that says, at least they're not in a box. We're not burying them. That's how hurt our people were when we first started to engage this conversation years ago. And today we're talking about equalities, opportunities. And that strategy, I know I went to that staff meeting in September. We did have a staff member, or a trustee there, and I appreciate the fact that we have interested members of the trustees taking a look at it. And my comment at that meeting was, let's not let this be put on a shelf. Don't just put it in here and let it collect dust and we pick it up once in a while and put it back. Let it give life, and let's breathe life into it. We're hearing all of these things around truth and reconciliation in the United Nations Declaration of how we're going to move forward. And I think we're doing that. We're demonstrating it. I think we need to believe in each other. And one of the things that happened that day for me, and leading up to that day, it's a proud moment for me because my children are involved. Landon and Jessica are both here in the district, working as educational assistants. And so I'm proud of that as a parent. But I'm also nervous of that because some of the things haven't changed. The discrimination in our schools are still here. The racism is still here. And if we think it's not, we're trying to kid ourselves. And I remember going to Stellies School as a student and literally having to fight, close my fists and fight. And Kevin can attest to that. So I really feel that there's some things that haven't changed, but you know what? The moment we start working together, we're stronger when we stay together. And that's what it's saying in our language, that we're going to do it together. And that's what I pleaded to our community members to do so. At that meeting in September, we stood Dave up. And we asked him that very question as the leader. So in our houses, we say we have a blanketed speaker. And that speaker has a right, role, and a responsibility in our own house. At that meeting and amongst the staff, amongst peers, we viewed and watched Dave talk and move amongst this strategy as the speaker of this home. We blanketed Dave and asked him to carry that work in an honorable way, in a respectful way. But more importantly, to say that when we do that in our longhouses, that's not something we take lightly. And we don't just do that for the sake of doing that. And I just wanted to stand here today and thank you all for your commitment to that strategy. I know I got frustrated, and you probably heard my frustration around some of the changes in the document itself leading to the final written paper. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're here. And I know we might have been at the table before in different ways, but to have it written and for us to make the commitment that we're not going to shelf it. I left that meeting in September feeling pretty good about what happened, to the support of the First Nations staff, Melissa's leadership. There was a few days and then it starts to absorb in, going, I wonder how the district's going to do that. It's a question that I have for myself. But we all need to be part of that planning. We all need to be part of who's dusting it, who's making sure. Let's not put it down. But I know I reached out to Dave after that and I thanked him because, as well Kevin would know, Peter, it's a lonely job trying to be a leader. You have to make decisions that are not comfortable. You have to play a role following a vision that people might not appreciate. But you're doing it. And I thank you for that. And I say this in front of your peers today. I appreciate and value who you are. And I've kind of questioned some of the decisions or how we got to where we were today. But I wanted to stand here and say that I appreciate and value who you are and thank you for allowing us to be part of the strategy. And I know we asked you to step out of his comfort zone as our children leave our comfort zone of the reserve every day and come to a public school. We've asked Dave to step into our comfort zone in our own communities and come to our meetings. And I know he probably wanted an agenda. He did have the agenda actually. He had it all laid down and he was going to follow this process. Him and Mike McKay. Didn't work that way. But we got to the end result that we were all looking for. But I think that's where people changed and started to see the value in a relationship with you. So I think we've kind of taken it to a different level and we're going to plateau, I think, if we allow ourselves to. So I don't have much more to say. I just wanted to come in and make those comments. And I want to say, if I can say it this way and not get myself in trouble. I've been to a couple of board meetings where I have felt awkward here in this very room. It almost felt like our canoe was unbalanced. And I hope you find balance amongst yourselves, especially the new members that come in as trustees. You're not here for yourselves, you're here for our children. I ask you not to forget that. You're here to make a better place for our staff, to encourage our children to show up every day with a smile. We as parents are taking our children out of our canoe and we're putting them in your canoe for 8 hours a day. And your staff have more influence over our children than we do as parents because we see them for a couple hours a day after school. So please encourage your staff, whether it's First Nations or non-First Nations. We are all together. The concerns that the municipality has, we have it tenfold and we're a smaller village. So I just say, let's work together. We'll stand with you. I'll stand with you. I'll make that commitment to stand with you for the betterment of all of our people. So Again, I'm not here to lecture. I'm sorry for, I didn't know how long I was here for, but I wanted to come in and stand and take my role seriously and let you know I take it seriously. That I'm going to stand. I stood in front of the assembly of the staff and blanketed Dave. Blanketed him with trust, with that warmth and caring on behalf of the district as your leader. And I know maybe in the eyes of the politics, we should have maybe blanketed the chairperson or however. But in the eyes of the discussion that took place around the strategy, the blanketed speaker for this comment or this document is Dave. So with that, I just say these few words and thank all of you. I lift my hands. And a lot of the times when we put our words to action like this, it really means something. So on behalf of our elders, the youngest children from our percent as people attending the school district, I lift my hands, asking you not to let this thing dust up and encourage the staff to be who they need to be the role models for our children. So as much I say, and I walk in this room, I think of all of the superintendents that were here, Hank and Jack. I think of some of those guys and I see the paddle on the wall. I was happy to make that paddle. I think of Charles Elliott, the logo that we have, and I asked for a special prayer for him. He's not doing well. He's in a hospital struggling to live another day. But there's all these people that make contributions to who we are as a people, and let's not take each other for granted. Not take ourselves for granted in the breath we have. I don't know if there's anything else I can add, but I just wanted to come in here and stand publicly and not to embarrass you, Dave, or to embarrass anybody or take up your time. I know you have a busy schedule. These are my feelings, and I wanted to be able to share it with you. So it's Tala Aitzeaka, not to forget always.
Thank you, Bruce. Just before you go, I just would like to acknowledge that I think one of the most powerful of your many powerful metaphors that you used tonight was the one of the canoe. And I really appreciate your imagery that you've left me, at least me, with of us all in the canoe paddling together to address some of the things that you've mentioned are so important. So thank you for bringing that to us. There is no report from the chair tonight, as I've already acknowledged. He's under the weather. But we do have a report from the superintendent of schools.
Yes, as soon as I can pull it up here. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. And I do appreciate the platform that I have on an evening like this to talk about a few important things. The first item is in your agenda. The second item is not. So I present the first item to you in this slide up on your screens right now. We have been conducting a number of what we call trustee 101 orientation sessions that provides the board with insight into a variety of governance and operational matters. We have 5 scheduled events still to come up. And I share the topics and the dates and times with the board this evening to hopefully get your approval to set these in our calendars as we look forward to trying to get these in before the end of February if possible, so that trustees have the information as early on in their term as possible. The dates and times that I provided to you last week are the same up here. We have flipped a couple of topics because of scheduling conflicts, but the dates and times are identical to what I sent you late last week, so you had an opportunity hopefully to check your calendars. So the topics still to be discussed are evidence-based practices in our schools, A slightly different presentation on EdTech from what you've seen already in things like EdDirections. It'll be a different focus for you. A discussion and exploration of the various programs and offerings that we have at the Individual Learning Center in both campuses. Talking about Indigenous learner success, including specifically the local education agreement to get you up to speed on that. And to talk more broadly about inclusive education, what it means to have students who are designated, how ministry funding works, and the various student supports that are available in the classrooms and in our buildings. And so those dates are spread out between the beginning of February to the end of February, and I provide them to you tonight for your consideration and hopefully your approval.
Thank you, Superintendent. Is there a mover? Actually, should the motion say approve the calendar and topics?
We have approved the topics already, but
We have,
if you, yeah,
okay,
if
then,
you,
so it's just the calendar we're
Yeah.
approving. Okay, is there a mover? Move trustee Silser, seconded trustee Van Well. Is there any, do you wish to open trustee Silser?
I think this is well paced and
Anything else? Thanks. I just like to say thanks in advance to the staff for organizing and presenting. I'm sure we'll have more thanks after it's done, but it looks like an ambitious program, and I'm sure it'll be useful for all of us too. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. You had another topic?
I do. I want to talk about getting better.
Are you talking about Dear Dunford?
I wouldn't do that, not in it. I do it to his face, I do it to his face, not behind his back, no. I often talk about us getting better and what that looks like. I talk about it in my blog, I tweet about it, I talk about it in management team meetings, in our exec team meetings, I talk about how are we going to be better tomorrow than we are today. Well, I think it's important to recognize that in education, we actually have 2 new years. We have September, where we get to try things again, and then we follow the traditional new year in January, where we look forward to the brand new calendar year. So we actually have 2 startups, if you will, 2 opportunities to refresh what we're thinking about and how we're doing it. So when we have a new year, we have a renewed commitment. And as I said, we have a couple of times during the year when we do that. But what are we really talking about when we talk about getting better? What does it really mean? And if we want to get better, what should we be focusing on to improve? Well, traditionally, when we look at getting better, we look at things like better scores. So we look at things like student attendance. Can we improve student attendance? Grade transitions, as students move from one grade to the other, are we capturing all of those students, or are we having some students not transition? We can take a look at graduation rates, an important measure, an important metric that we use not only overall, but things like Indigenous student graduation rates. We can look at things like FSA results, which form part of our FESL document, which is the Foundation Skills Assessment. And we have other literacy and numeracy measures as well, both provincial and local measures. How are we doing on those metrics? Even post-secondary transitions, what percentage of our students are transitioning to post-secondary after 1 year, 2 years, et cetera. Those are all important things that we can look at to see if we're getting better. But is that all that better really means? Should better also mean enhancing student engagement? And what does that look like? We can take a look at all of the numbers we want, and they're important. And I don't mean to minimize the importance of looking at numerical metrics to see how we're doing. But if we truly want to get better, are we looking at other things such as ensuring we have safe learning spaces to explore innovation and creativity? And by safe, I mean emotionally safe. Do we encourage people to take risks? Do we get better when we have spaces where people feel they can try things to enhance the learning of students? Do we provide a variety of learning opportunities? Do we have different programs? Do we have different entry points to the curriculum? Do we have different opportunities for students to complete credits? What does that look like? Are we honoring diversity? And not just saying that we value it, but are we prepared to tackle the issues like personal and systemic racism in our district? And they do exist. Do we seek the truth as we are on our shared obligation towards reconciliation? Will that make us better? Is that something that we should be focusing on? I would argue it is. If we don't understand the truth, we're not going to have students engage. We're not going to have Indigenous students want to engage in what we're doing and what we're trying to provide for them. And something that I am passionate about is failing forward. When we fail forward, we learn from the errors or the trials that we've undertaken, and we move forward in our quest to be better. We don't use failure as a roadblock. We don't criticize failure when there's been a genuine attempt to try and make things better. We fail forward by celebrating the effort behind the attempt. So when we look at learning, I think that's a good place to look when we talk about how we want to get better. Sir Ken Robinson, who is unfortunately not with us anymore, he passed away a couple of years ago, was probably one of the world's largest champions about imagination and creativity, being the most important factors in terms of a successful education for schools. He was very critical of traditional schools and the regimented nature of them. And he said, schools have had a history of stifling imagination, of stifling creativity. And if we want students to be learning, we need to find ways to enhance those. Because learning is dynamic and it's complex. It can't be broken down into a linear sequence. Learning has been proven to be most successful when it's tied to emotion and passion. We learn best when we are connected to the material, when it means something to us, when we're passionate about it. Probably most importantly, learning is individualized and it's unique for every person. Every person learns in a different way, they want to learn about different things, and they have passions in different areas. Learning is context and experience dependent. And learning is non-binary. I heard that from a very important colleague of mine the other day, and I wanted to incorporate it. I won't mention Paul's name because I don't want to embarrass him. But education is really a process of trial and error. It's about ups and downs. It's about success and failure. And we should be celebrating and encouraging all of that because it's not a straight line. It is not a situation of if you do this, then that will happen. It's let's try this and see what effect it has. Did it work for this student? Did it not work for that student? Is it effective? Is it somewhat effective? What do we need to change? It's that constant reevaluation. It's that cycle of reevaluating what works and what doesn't work and how can we adjust to make things better. Einstein talked about the importance of imagination is much more important than knowledge in itself, and he claimed that he didn't have any special talent. He's only passionately curious. Here's some other quotes about, here's some other facts about learning. Again, it needs an emotionally safe space. We need to be patient in the learning process. Not everybody travels the road at the same speed or necessarily in the same direction. Everybody, staff, students, trustees, parents, we all need to go into the learning paradigm with an open mind. And we need to have a willingness to unlearn. Because we have sometimes learned things that aren't productive and helpful. And again, an understanding that not all parts of the learning process can be measured. So let's talk about that measurement piece. We talked about those scores at the beginning. Those are measurements. Are those not important? No, they are important. But not everything about learning can be measured. It's not always about producing the right answer. As Alfie Cohen said, we can't value only what is easy to measure. Measurable outcomes may be the least important results of learning. Lyndon McNeil, a researcher from the United States, talked about the focus on achievement can easily turn learning from something natural and enjoyable to something stressful and forced. And Melissa Hughes commented, isn't curiosity the basis for understanding, creativity, and critical and innovative thinking? I defy anybody to measure curiosity. How do you put a metric to that? So when we talk about matters, things that matter the most, you could type in anything into Google or any search engine and you can find any number of opinions on what we need to do to make learning better. I think it's important to try and get an overall flavor of what would enhance things like student engagement, student achievement, and school completion. And there was a recent study conducted, a meta-analysis of over 130 studies on those very factors, student engagement, student achievement, and school completion. That was conducted by the University of Calgary and published in May 2021. I'm not sure if these would be surprising to you, but I find them interesting and somewhat reassuring to what we should be focusing on. So let's take a look at the 5 factors from this meta-analysis that have the greatest impact on educational success. Explicit inclusivity. Having an inclusive school climate that is essential for those who have been historically marginalized. Celebrating diversity isn't enough. It's about tackling the problems that exist and looking in the dark corners to explore how do we get the people who have been silenced in the past to have a voice in their education and to tackle those issues that are uncomfortable to deal with. Number 2, strong relationships. That there needs to be not only high expectations, but balancing those with empathy, where we have the adults in the community who are good listeners. They use humor, they foster dialogue, and they show interest in their students. Number 3, comprehensive learning opportunities. Instruction that promotes complex thinking over simple memorization. Being collaborative, interdisciplinary, active, and problem-based learning. Number 4, tracking and transitions. This is the data piece. Making sure that we monitor attendance and achievement over time, that we don't just look at one snapshot, but we monitor that student progress over time. Part of what our literacy plan is making sure that we track students over time in their literacy results. Not just using a single measure like FSA to see how we're doing, but what does it look like over time, and what are different measures that we can be using to track that important skill set. And number 5, flexibility. Having systems that allow for various completion options for students, various entry points, different fields of passion they can be following to achieve their graduation and open up the doors to their future success. These are the things that make the difference if we're going to be better. These are the things that we can focus on to enhance student success in our school. Success is going to be defined differently for every student. It's going to be defined differently for Indigenous learners. It's going to be defined differently for girls than it might be for boys. It's going to be defined differently depending on where you live in the community. It's going to be different because people are different. So being better is about focusing on the means to the end. It's about making those personal connections, respecting diversity and tackling those uncomfortable barriers that still exist. It's about enhancing equity of opportunity for all students. It's about ensuring we maintain creativity and innovation in our system and that we provide that safe space for them to thrive. It's about providing various entry points to their learning journey, and it's about celebrating failure. Celebrating failure. You tried, that's fantastic. Let's look at that again. It's about creating that space for people to do what they dream about doing and to fulfill the mandate that they're here to fulfill. And they can only do that if there's an environment that promotes that. Those are the things that I believe means we're getting better. That's my presentation for this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent. Are there any questions or comments from the trustees? Trustee Newman.
Thank you very much. I really appreciated what you shared with us today, and I dialed in with celebrating failure. We learn so much when things don't go and don't go according to plan, and I think that also fosters the critical thinking of how do we try again and look for a different outcome. So thank you for that.
Could you put up your slide again,
Sure.
the 5 things that matter?
Yeah. Find it again here.
Half of one of them.
Oops. This one?
Yeah, we're talking about student engagement, student achievement, school completion, all things that are very important. And 5 factors that matter most in getting there, right?
Yes.
I've got the relationship. And when I look at that list, the only thing I see that relates to the FSA is half of number 4. And yet, in this province, it seems that the FSAs are how we rate our schools. And this dichotomy, this conflict, this contradiction drives me nuts.
Me too.
It's how we rate education in Canada.
It's just, I mean, it's like putting your hand on the tail of an elephant and saying, this is the elephant. You know, it's just, it's so bizarre, it's so unfair, and it's so, it seems to me, counterproductive. I mean, I don't disagree with anything on that list, and probably there's other lists we could make and everything else. And I don't disagree with the fact that achievement, actual achievement is important. But surely we have to learn that there are other things that we need to be cognizant of and evaluating and supporting and working for change so that all these other things can happen for kids. But it's...
We had, through the chair, if I can, we had an opportunity, was it last week, to go to 2 graduation events? Was it last week we were there? Yes, it was last Thursday, we were there at ILC for the hairdressing program and the trades and skills, trades awareness, skills and knowledge graduation. And I looked, as I'm sure others who were there, looked at every graduate's face when they came up to get their certificate. And those students were engaged in their learning. There were so many students in that group that had perfect attendance and were working to their capacity. It was a celebration of their success and the passion that they had for that craft. I look at those things there, look at the relationships with their administrators and their teachers in those programs. Look how they were all included, and there were some historically marginalized students in those graduation cohorts. Flexibility of the system that they gave various entry points. They are the poster students for this list. And what's important for students if we want them to be successful. So while yes, we are historically measured on things like FSA.
We're not just measured, we get beaten up by it.
Yes.
That's the worst part.
That is the frustrating part because that's not the story of education. What makes us better, what makes our district better, what makes us a place where students want to come is we continually strive in these areas to be better. We continue to find ways to connect with students in ways that are creative and innovative and are people-centric. And I'm very proud to be part of this district because it's had a long storied history before I came, and we're still pushing on this to make us even better because these are the things that when you say, how are you making this better? How are you improving graduation rates? This is how we're doing, right here on these things. So thank you for that comment.
The rant.
Me too.
Just take this opportunity to welcome Nola Welsh from CUPE. See you up there, Nola. Hi.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Anything else on your report, Superintendent?
I'm fine, I'm done, thank you.
Okay, good. Then moving on, then school successes are attached. Anybody anything they need to add to that list? I think one of the things we could add is the ILC graduations for
Yes.
Task and Bear. Should be on that list. It was, as you said, it was a fantastic evening. Committee reports. Moving on to ed directions.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm very pleased.
I'm just going to say Trustee Silver. Go ahead.
Sorry, okay. And I'm very pleased to follow the superintendent's report because at our Ed Directions Committee meeting, we had poster teachers for getting better. 3 North Saanich Middle School teachers, Pam Carruthers, America Jones, and Rita Muscocci. Okay. Mazzocchi, talked to us about fostering inclusive classrooms. And they gave us examples of their inclusive practices, and they, at North Saanich Middle School, the students have the same teacher for 2 years in a row, so they get a chance to build really strong relationships. The teachers have a very collaborative team approach, and with that combination of having a strong relationship and having a good team teaching, they support the students to be active participants in their own learning. So they were very inspiring and enthusiastic, and if learning is tied to emotion and passion, well, these teachers have a lot of passion. We also had a presentation by Vice Principals Andreas Klessel and Sarah Postlethwaite, and the district instructional support teacher, Theodora Sademeyer. And they talked to us about MAT training, building relationships and helping children with challenging behaviors. Andreas and Sarah have taken the Train the Trainers course, and they're hoping to expand and to train further district personnel in this technique of dealing with diverse students, particularly in risk situations, and helping teachers to deal with diverse behaviors. And so we were left with one of the, I guess, formative mantras for the program is, and that they foster for their students, is, in this place with these people, I feel safe. So that is, that's concludes my report.
Thank you, Chair Biddy. Is there any questions or comments from anyone? No motions? All right, thank you very much, Trustee Silver. Moving on then to Finance, Facilities and Technology. Trustee Elder.
Thank you, Chair. We have no items for recommendation. There was one presentation as noted by Director Philly Henschel in regard to the IT Refresh Ed update. It is included, and most of us present here were also present that day. My only comment there is that we can, as we celebrate the tremendous success of the IT program, from everything in the areas of everything from infrastructure to educational applications in schools and beyond, we realize that there are some significant cost implications for upgrading systems to ensure that systems will be safe and reliable and have everything they need by way of failover backups and those kinds of things. And we can expect that there will be some of those elements of tech planning emerge in budget planning. And I know Secretary Treasurer Reid is prepared to factor those things into early planning and has already done so. Beyond that, there were 3 items for information that were provided that were significant and would be worthy of discussion, but were not provided that day or today for discussion. But they're in the package, the funding update, the fiscal forecast, and the oral update of international program enrollment, which was rather encouraging, but demonstrated a lack of capacity of the system by way of homestay families to grow the program to its full capacity. So beyond encapsulating those very briefly, through you, Chair, maybe the Secretary Treasurer Reid has more to add that has been learned since we were together in committee. I'll leave that to you, Chair, to see if you wish to allow questions or have Mr. Reid comment.
Thank you, Trustee Elder. You wish to comment, Secretary Treasurer?
No, thank you. I don't think there anything to add or
Any comments or questions from trustees? Okay. Thank you, Trustee Elder. Moving on then to policy committee. Thanks, Chair. Trustee Manuel.
So we didn't have any presentations, but we did have an item for discussion, which was the transportation survey results and review. And we were joined by our director of facilities, Rob Lum, and our manager of transportation, Gordon Bridges, who were there to answer any questions that we had about the results and, and any questions that trustees had. As a committee, we agreed that staff be requested to assess the options and implications for policy revisions that A, would lower K to 5 walk limits, considering variation in school geography, reflects safety considerations in determining service and routes, encourages and support active transportation and environmental considerations, encourages timely registration and discourages ghost riders, focuses route design on optimizing service for students entitled to service by policy, clarifies how courtesy riders are defined, and reflects consideration of supporting vulnerable students. So staff has been given this direction, and we'll come back in a couple of months with some more recommendations for us.
An actual draft policy.
And yes, an actual draft policy.
Thank you. I want to compliment staff for actually getting something coherent out of our conversation.
I'm thoroughly impressed that they pulled all of this information out of our discussion, so.
Well, that's a way of doing it. Anyway, well done.
Yes. And that is my report.
Thank you, Trustee Van Mill. Trustee Elder?
Thank you, Chair. Just as a committee member, I'd like to comment and express my appreciation to our senior staff and management staff, and acknowledge that what's not here is a motion to have our transportation leadership team develop a wholesale review and a whole resetting of routes to make everyone happy. There are some people who are unhappy for reasons that we heard, including not having timely bus routes when they are in fact courtesy riders and not entitled to a ride. So not responding to those concerns with "we better fix that," I think is a credit to our leadership team and to the process. And I hope that these instructions or requests of our senior staff do reflect what they want to do, as opposed to us making things up and giving them jobs and saying, this is our supporting, where we thought both the survey and our knowledge of things to do with transportation led us to, as a district, where these kinds of things being addressed could improve the flow of transportation in the district in a way that's consistent with the wishes of our senior staff. So I hope this isn't seen as a big to-do list, but rather as support for that which is, in the planning already.
Thank you, Trustee Elder. Okay, Trustee Van Mill, I don't see any other hands or questions, so we'll move on then. Okay, thank you very much for that. To reports from trustee representatives and Trustee Silzer, the BCPC annual general meeting.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So next week, the superintendent and I will be attending the BCPC annual general meeting. And I am seeking the board's direction on a number of items. And I sent you the package, I guess, in December and also today, to tell you that there are basically four things that, four directions that I'm seeking. The first is, I think they will be is seeking approval of the audited financial statements for 2021, 2022. And that, I think, is a given. The second is approving the 2023-2024 BCPC budget. And then there are proposed ordinary resolutions, two of them, and there are 3 special resolutions. So, Chair, I think I can present things and make motions, and if anybody has questions about the particular resolutions, for example.
So you're proposing to move that you be directed to support or oppose resolutions?
So, does that meet your
Try it out.
I move, I move.
So what do you do?
I want to see next when she starts, that's what I want to see.
This is my.
We'll see if she gets a second.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, you see how-
The challenge to the chair.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Sorry, trustee Silver, very rude.
Okay, I move that, the BCPC representative be directed to vote in favor of adopting, approving the audited financial statements for BCPC for 2021-2022.
Just what you're going to do one at a time. Is there a seconder? Seconded trustee Hickman. You wish to open on the motion, trustee Silver?
Yes, basically the BCPC is funded by the government. And, in the amount of $4 million a year. And, basically, you have, maybe I can just say it this way. If anybody has any question about the details of this.
We're just talking about the audit statement, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, and this is just me not knowing.
Go ahead, trustee.
Would it not be trustee Solzer's purview to approve or not approve as our representative without us giving her specific direction?
Either way, it's appropriate. It's up to us to decide if we want to give direction or not.
Okay.
Trustee Silver is suggesting that she wants direction, which is why she moved the motion. We don't have any other speakers on my list, though. You ready for the question? Those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Got another one, trustee Silver?
Yes. I move that the board direct the BCPC representative to vote in favor of adopting 2023-2024 BCPC budget.
In the amount of?
In the amount of approximately $9 million.
Is seconded? Seconded trustee Van Wel. Yes,
Yes, in comparing this budget with last year's budget, there's an increase in revenue. The highlights of this are that they're expecting that the government will be funding the 2023 exempt staff salary increases. That leads to an increase in the revenue. There's been an increase in interest revenue. And they've cut costs by hiring more in-house lawyers and cutting outside lawyer services.
I had myself on the list. Is there anyone else? Just a question. You originally said the budget was 4 million for last year and it's 9 million for this year?
Yeah, something like that. But it can't be that much of a difference, can it?
In either case, my question is, I'm wondering why the increase when in fact a large portion of what was consuming the budget, I assume in the last year were negotiations and we've got collective agreements with both the major union groups, so I'm just not sure what would justify a big increase right now.
I think I made a mistake. It looks like it was 8 million
Last year.
last year.
Do you know
And
why there'd be an increase given that I would expect? I mean, I don't know the workings of BCPC all that well, but you think with no major bargaining efforts on the horizon.
they do say there's an increase in association staff and base salary increases. Their Make a Future, the teacher recruiting arm has an increased staffing costs. And there's an increase in association administration expenses due to a significant increase in external audit fees, 100% increase in audit fees. And IT systems and applications maintenance costs. And superintendent, do you have?
There's also, through the chair, a $329,000 addition to the budget for a provincial French teacher recruitment campaign.
That was,
Maybe, I was gonna say, maybe we should leave it more to your discretion rather than directing you to vote for it. Leave it open and then you can ask some questions and see if it really, this increase is really warranted.
yeah, and I'm sorry, we were given a briefing last week, where we could, I would have been more fully briefed, but I was a hospital.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so.
Trustee Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to speak against the motion because I'm not a big fan of defeating motions. I think they're on the floor for good reason, that maybe that it would be appropriate if it's allowed for it to be withdrawn rather than voted down. Or deferred or even tabled, I would have a hard time voting for just an absolute authority to vote for a budget that I'm not familiar with. And further to that, I would urge our representative to press the case that whatever the increase is, I'm sure there is a percentage there that I'm not aware of, be in keeping with budget increases that are being experienced by school districts. So beyond enrollment increases, there is an increase across the province that speaks to, collective agreement, negotiated increases, and perhaps some inflationary pressures being addressed and so on. So if with all of that, the average increase of a school district budget across the province is X percent, BCPC should be no more than that. And that's not I think direction we should give our representative, but I would suggest that we do give Trustee Silzer the support for being a critical consumer of what happens next week and pressing issues of importance around affordability, and then voting as she sees fit.
We have a number of alternatives here. We could defeat or adopt the motion as is. We could amend the motion reflecting the last bits of conversation at the table here. We could amend the motion to say vote for it if she sees fit or words to that effect. Or the motion could be tabled, which is just a motion to sort of put the motion aside. Nothing happens. It just means that the motion kind of almost didn't happen. And tabling is non-debatable. And then that would leave the discretion with the BCPC representative. So is there anybody who wants to move any motion at all? You don't have to move any of them. We can just deal with the one that's on the floor. But if anybody wants to change it somehow, now's the time.
Can you read the motion again?
It's basically that the representative be directed to vote for the motion. Yeah, that's right.
Or I can withdraw the motion?
There's no such thing as withdrawing a motion. Trustee
I
Allen.
move the motion to.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Vandal. It's not debatable. Those in favor? Those opposed? Motion's carried. So you're on your own. We're all out, yeah, no, for that budget matter.
Okay, because we do have it's easier with the ordinary resolution than the special resolution.
Okay, carry on, please, trustee Silver.
Okay, so, now, does everybody have the materials that I sent today? So we have the proposed ordinary resolutions. I move that the board direct the BCPC representative to vote in favor of ordinary resolution O-1, that is, be it resolved that Schedule 3.2 of the BCPC bylaws be amended as follows, that school district 42, Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows be moved from the Fraser Valley Employer Regional Grouping to the Metro Employer Regional Grouping.
Seconded by trustee Egan.
And the rationale for this is that Maple Ridge is part of Metro Vancouver. And it would therefore align with the regional governance structure.
Any questions or comments on the proposed resolution? Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Motion's carried.
The second motion is I move that the BCPC representative be directed by the board to vote in favor of ordinary resolution O2. Be it resolved that BCPC continue to work with partners to develop ongoing and systemic supports for recruitment and retention based on regional needs.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Second, trustee Egan.
This is a motion put forward by school district number 60, Peace River North, and they are referring to their dire need for certified teachers. And in the 14 northern districts, they say that they have 150 letters of permission and 325 non-certified TTOCs. So they can't find certified teachers to go there, and they're just asking that BCPC continue the efforts to help them out.
Trustee Egan.
Have they given any kind of guidelines on what their plan is to provide this support?
They're asking BCPC to work harder on it.
But there's nothing specific. Thank you, Chair.
Could you ask them to say uncertificated instead of certificated?
If you would prefer uncertificated,
As opposed to being certifiable, yeah. Any other comments or questions? Those in favor? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, trustee Silzer. Is there another one? Okay, go ahead.
I move that the BCPC representative be directed to vote in favor of Special Resolution S1. Be resolved that Part 7, 7.11 and Schedule 3 of the BCPC bylaws be amended so that the election cycle of a vice chair will be on a 3-year term as identified in the bylaws for the chair and directors.
Is there a seconder? Seconded, trustee Van Wall.
The rationale for this proposed change is that the length of the term for a vice chair is not defined in the Constitution and bylaws, but the terms of the chair and the directors are. So we want to align these terms.
Any comments or questions on that one? Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried.
I move that the board direct the BCPC representative to vote in favor of special resolution S2, be it resolved that Schedule 2.11 of the BCBC bylaws be amended to add electronic voting as an option to reflect agreement, approval, or rejection.
Seconded trustee Vandal.
So during the pandemic, BCPC has used electronic voting. We want to continue to do so.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried.
And I'm not going to go through all the details of special resolution S3, but because there are eight of them, housekeeping matters. But I move that BCBC representative be directed to vote in favor of special resolution S3.
How many are in the housekeeping category? 8? How would you like to amend your motion to say vote in favor of all 8? Are you agreeing with that?
Yes. But it's one resolution.
Oh, okay. Yes, oh, it's just one. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just looking at it on the screen and I see.
There are 8.
It looks like they're all different here.
They're all different.
Yeah, they're all different. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a resolution, but it would be under.
If they're housekeeping, probably just things that they have to change, right?
In some cases, yeah, the name of the Ministry of Education changed.
Yeah. Is there agreement to deal with all 8 of them in one motion? Okay. I don't see any comments or questions. Those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried.
Those are all the resolutions, and thank you, Trustee Scott. Thank you.
Finished? Oh, great, thanks. Okay, well done. And the BCSTA, I have that. Trustee Benwell.
Yeah. So mine will be quick. I just wanted to bring the attention, and I did send an email out yesterday to trustees, but there are some orientation sessions that have been organized by the BCSTA in partnership with the Ministry of Education and Childcare. And they are in and around governance, roles, responsibilities, and so much more. And the first one will be tomorrow evening, 5 to 7 p.m. And it'll be on governance. The BCSTA is really encouraging these because they're geared towards new trustees. But obviously, all trustees can attend if they like, but it is more for the new trustees. And there will be a total of 6, usually about one a month, from what I can see. They've got 4 here listed, but or 3 listed. So everybody's encouraged to join, and they're all free sessions for all members.
Thank you for that information and encouragement. Thanks, Steve, very well. Okay, moving on then to correspondence, and I don't have any that I know of. Is there, no, okay. Question period. Mr. Malloy, COPAX.
Thank you. Thanks for letting COPAX be here. Whilst I was preparing my question, I was sat here thinking, you're the dad of a 9-year-old when your question to the board is written in glitter pen. Okay, so the question that I have, or COPAX has, is regarding the demolition of the gym at the Allegro building. And understand that there's funds have been allocated towards that demolition. We're aware that the building is in rough shape, and that there's the dismantling of or at least the entire building requires seismic upgrades. So we were just wondering why there's the $100,000 that's gone towards specifically the gym tear down and not either the whole building or not at all.
Thank you for your question. I don't know if we'll be able to answer it tonight, but I will ask the Secretary Treasurer if it's possible to answer it or not. We'll get back to you. How about-
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I can answer
Okay.
that question. When the lease was renewed with Allegro, 2020, prior to the renewal of that lease, we engaged an engineering firm, Herald Engineering, and they did a detailed assessment of the building condition, and the result of that engineering assessment determined that the gymnasium and the covered area were both a very high seismic risk. They were S1, the highest risk for seismic, and also that the cost to mitigate the structural concerns with those, with the gym and the covered play area was prohibitively expensive. So those parts of the building were not reflected in the renewed lease space. They're now vacant, and demolition of those structures are in the capital plan, the last capital plan that the board submitted to the ministry, but we haven't had to date confirmation of funding to fund the demolition yet.
Okay, thanks. Great, thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Great, thanks, Chair. More of a reminder than a question tonight. Next Wednesday, the Teachers Association is holding an induction ceremony for our new members over the last 3 years. This will be the first induction that we've held since the pandemic. So if you haven't considered attending, I really would encourage you to do that, and really kind of looking for at least a few members from senior management or a few school trustees to attend. So I really encourage that you come out for that. It's at the Beach House, and it might be one of the last times that we get to go to the Beach House. So
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to the SDA for the invitation. It's always a lovely evening, and I do encourage my colleagues to attend if possible. Lovely treats, as well as inspired young teachers.
great, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. I don't see any other questions, so moving on then to other business as submitted. Trustee Manuel, I think, are we not doing the BCPC first? We're going to do BCPC first? Okay. All right, election of BCPC alternate representative. From last December to the next AGM in November 2023. Are there any nominations for the alternate BCPC rep? Trustee Silzer?
I nominate Trustee Vandal.
Trustee Vandal, do you accept the nomination? Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the position of alternate representative to BCPC? Second time, any further nominations? Third time, any further nominations? Hearing none. Congratulations, Trustee Vandal, you're it. Well done. Thank you very much for volunteering to do that. Okay, and now, trustees tour of Saanich schools.
Yes,
Trustee Manuel.
thank you. I would like to propose a motion that the board express its sincere appreciation to the board staff, school staff, and students for their contributions to creating an excellent, well-organized, and informative trustees tour of Saanich schools.
Is there a seconder? All the arms, what? Well, not all the arms, because unfortunately, sorry, yes, there's a seconder. Yes, go ahead, please.
All right, thank
So
you.
who was it?
Who was the seconder?
Oh, yes, Trustee
Okay. Last week, last Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, all trustees had the opportunity to go on a tour of all of our Saanich schools. And we had our directors of instruction, along with our assistant superintendent, giving us the tours in their respective zones. And then we were greeted by the staff at the schools, and in one case, some students who did an amazing tour of the schools. And for me, it was a wonderful opportunity to go into schools I hadn't been before. So And I will make mention, because it was brought up from Ed Directions, we actually had the opportunity to go into one of the classrooms for the inclusive classroom presentation that was done at Ed Directions, and Marika, she talked to us some more about the classroom. The students were in the classroom, so it was a really great opportunity to sort of ask more questions and talk to her. So it was really nice to sort of have this presentation and then actually see it in person. So I'm really, really appreciative of that. I'm sure the other trustees that attended were as well. So I would like that expressed.
Thank you, trustee Van Wel. I had myself on the list next. Anybody else? I think it's very appropriate that trustee Van Wel was able to move this motion, because she is the only one of all of us who got to every single stop along out of the 3 days. So congratulations to trustee Van Wel, first of all. But secondly, I echo the remarks that trustee Van Wel has already made. And I want to, first of all, start here at the board office with all the organizing that went on to make it happen, which I'm sure was no small feat. And then the coordination with the schools, which must have been an equally challenging effort to try to bring it all together. And then to go to the schools and find the staff, and as trustee Van Wel said, in one case, it was the actual students, senior students, who were giving us the guided tour, and that was very impressive as well. Getting to see the, meeting teachers, seeing education in action, and getting to know our facilities, even though I've been in the district for 1 or 2 years now. I mean, there's changes in the school. Every school I went to was different than the last time I was there. So it was really worthwhile. And for those of you who are new to the district, I'm sure it was a wonderful opportunity too. But I can't say enough by way of expressing my appreciation to everybody. The interruption in the schools with us trooping through it was so well handled at the school level, at the district level, and especially appreciative, special appreciation to Director Hunter, Assistant Superintendent Hamilton, and
Oh, there.
At least they don't call you David.
Maybe that's what it is.
This is David. And Director Westhaver. And whoever at this end organized it all, I expect might have.
No, it wasn't. It was Shannon Davies and
Shannon, well, please tell Shannon.
And Marie.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Anyway, it was really worthwhile, and I'm sorry that all of you didn't get to come, because it was, it really was worthwhile. Trustee Vandal.
I folded the same things, it's a trustee 101 session, I think was the best, because as the rubber hits the road, and we saw the road, and it was a great road. And I recognize it must have been I can't use the first verb or first adjective, load of work for you guys to organize. And to see the different varieties of the schools, and to see the number of teachers that had taken their masters, their graduate work, and putting action in plans, so action research. And it was pretty utopic. You had to see it to believe in the diversity of it. Buildings, the students, how they organized their playgrounds, how they organized their beginning of their interests. One of the schools, I forget which one, had a senior center next door in Port Orford Bay, and that was pretty idealistic as well. And they said that the seniors would come in and they would play pickleball with them and read with them, play cards with them, and they were in a choir together with them. And they said the one disadvantage was that the seniors wanted to teach them how to read. And I thought, that's exactly what I would like to do. But no, it was a pretty sweet way to spend 3 lovely days.
Yes, it hasn't been called Hamilton for about 6 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while.
It's kind of fun now.
Anyway, thanks very much, everybody. Trustee Silsby? No, we haven't voted yet.
No, actually,
Oh,
I didn't wait.
Hi,
Trustee Hickman.
I just wanted to share some observations from the zonal tours as well. I was thrilled to see the different educational and wellness opportunities that were offered in School District 63 and how they tied in with our strategic plan. Some examples were spin bikes at the schools. I thought that was incredibly cool, just out in the hallway, where if a student needed to go and just redirect, burn off a little energy, there was an opportunity to do that. Outdoor learning space at Lochside Elementary School. The teachers took unused school property and turned it into a great space for exploration for natural environment, which was a great tie-in for global citizenship. Also at Lochside, they have a community little library. It was a parent, I believe it was, made this. It was so beautiful. And that grew from providing an in-school bookshelf that family members could access. And what's it? Yeah, in different languages, and brought that out to the community. So again, we saw encouraging supporting literacy. Multi-aged and looping program at North Saanich Middle School, showing how they meet their students where they're at. I was curious with that because it's only offered at the one school, how we might be able to quantify student success through to graduation by having that experience at middle school versus a more traditional experience. So curious about that. And then the learning commons that was in several schools, allowing multiple classes to come together for activities and projects, and just creating that strong learning community. And my overall observation was just how very student-centric public education in our district is, and being able to see it in action.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Anyway, as you can tell, it was a great success. I'm sorry that some of you didn't get to go, but another time. And please, if somebody will pass on our thanks to the schools and the people in this building who were here tonight.
Mary Lynn, who's up on our screen.
All those in favor? Opposed?
No, we hadn't done that yet. We didn't.
All right. I don't think we have any items for information. So I'm looking for.
May I step in with that for information?
Certainly.
Not on the agenda. Just a reminder that the Budget Advisory Committee's first meeting is 26th, which is next Thursday at Bayside, I believe.
It's here.
It's here.
Yeah.
And that's the committee that has myself with Trustee Hickman, Trustee Silver representing the board, and pretty much all of our senior leadership team, as well as representatives of our partner groups and our school-based management. And that first meeting will be to review terms of reference and timelines and receive a presentation on things budget related from Secretary Treasurer and get the ball rolling with planning. And just a reminder that that's an advisory committee. So it's not a voting entity. There will be consensus emerging from discussions, and if not, there will be a report to the board through the Finance, Facilities and Technology Committee saying here's what was learned at the most recent BAC meeting, the first one being next week, as I said. And the advice seems to be this, and there were these either differing or dissenting views expressed as well. So it'll give a full overview of what was discussed in each of those advisory committee meetings so that the board can be better informed going forward with budget planning. So first of those is next Thursday at 3 o'clock, and that's here.
Could I have a motion to adjourn? Moved Van Well, seconded Van Dal. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Don't call me
No,
Madam.
Madam.
Exit,